Launching the afternoon will be Hector Martinez. Mr. Martinez earned his bachelor's degree in technology and education at Aguascalientes, Mexico in 1998 and came to the United States in 2000. He is currently the director of the Adult Learning Center at Garden City Community College in Garden City, Kansas. Hector is likewise working on his master's in adult education administration from K-State. He is a former president of the Kansas Adult Education Association and a regional representative for the Commission on Adult Basic Education. We especially welcome him as a representative from the western part of our state, realizing, of course, this is the Kansas Language Symposium, not the Johnson County or the Kansas City Metro Language Symposium. And he also, I think, has the honor of the speaker who drove the longest way to get here. What is it from Garden City, about 6 hours?
Six and a half
hours. So, please welcome Hector Martinez.
Thank you, James. First of all, bienvenidos para todos aquellos que hablan español. Bienvenidos a este symposium. Welcome to all of those that speak Spanish to this symposium. And before I go to start my presentation here on the slides, I'm going to be moving around. I'm going to try to make this more interactive, just because the fact that you probably went there and ate a good sandwich and now you're going to try to get to sleep, forget it. This is not to sleep session. Then I'm going to try to go around and catch you. You're on your cell phone or you're writing some good drawings over there, then I'm going to pass by you and ask you some questions. Then my presentation is more about, I'm not really an expert on the Spanish language. However, I think after being 12 years in the Southwest Kansas, I have pretty good knowledge about how the Spanish is being impacting that area of Kansas. Then my presentation is going to be more about how the Spanish is becoming part of the Kansas and how may impact you in some time. Then I'm going to start with some facts. In white Spanish, Spanish is the second most spoken language in the world. Not all the Spanish speakers are coming from Mexico or Spain. There is more countries that speak Spanish. Then my question here, my first question is going to be, then what is the number one spoken language in the world? Chinese. The third? English. Okay, those are the three top languages. Then Spanish is the second one. Then the Spanish language is increasingly becoming more important and more necessity in the United States. And some facts, in 2001, the U.S. Latino population was 29.3 million, so already 10% of the U.S. population. And this is where I was coming from. In 2040, the Latino population will be 25% of the total population. In 2002, Latino population represent 477 billions in power. And over 50% of U.S. residents who speak a second language. The second language is Spanish. This picture, you already saw that picture in the hallways when you're coming in. This is the percentage who speaks Spanish in home. And more from Kansas, this is the same picture that you see in the hallway. It is more and more population in Kansas that speak part of Spanish. Then where we're coming from? When we're coming to Kansas, this is kind of like representative from the census, or where we're coming from to Kansas, especially to Phoenix County, the area where I'm coming from, Garden City. more the Latino America, Africa, Oceania, Europe. And I'm gonna stop right here, and again, I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about my story, because my story is gonna be kind of like similar to most of those Hispanic, Latinos. I came here in 1999 for first time to Houston to visit my brother. My sister were living in Garden City. Most of my relatives, my grandma, aunts, cousins, they were living in Garden City. Then I came back and assist one of the job fairs in Finney County. The Garden City Community College, they have a booth there. And I went there and applied for a position. I was not really staying here, but I said, well, I'm gonna just give it a shot. In December that same year, I got a proposal to come to the United States and work for the community college in education technology. I moved with my family in 2000, and I have 4 children. When we came to Garden City, we saw a town that was a lot of people speaking our own language. I didn't speak English at that time. The first assignment from the Garden City Community College was, you're gonna go to a conference in San Diego, California, and you're gonna be there for 15 days by myself. I didn't speak English at that time. Then my first challenge was, how do I gonna get to the airplane? How do I gonna go to the hotel? And how do I gonna ask where I need to go? What sessions or what presentation I supposed to attend? Then I relied only in my previous knowledge for other conferences in Mexico. Then my first thought on that was going and ask who speaks Spanish. First researcher, right? Who speaks Spanish? Can you help me? And well, I was lucky that I was in San Diego, close to Tijuana, close to Mexico. Well, in this conference, 100% of the attendees were English speakers. There were no one to speak Spanish. You know what I did? I went to the kitchen. I went to the kitchen and asked, does anybody speak Spanish? What was their response? What do you think? Todos, everybody. Everybody speaks Spanish. Then that was my resources, and I was eating in the kitchen of the restaurant of the hotel for the 15 days with those folks. And I was taking some of the documents that I have for the conference and taking to them. And instead of reading the menu, they were reading the conference planning material for me, the way I can go to the sessions that I need to go. But I was forced. First, I was going to the conference, going to the presentations, and back to my hotel room, and read and read and read English, because I needed to know. And I was knowing that I need to go back to Garden City and report. What do you learn? Then it was forced to learn the language. And most of the Hispanic or Latinos that we're coming to the United States, we are forced that way. We need to be forced to learn a new language. We are forced to understand totally different culture, totally different holidays, totally different food, even. Then that's a little bit of how I get involved into the English. After that, I would study English every day. I took the advantage of the community college English professors to go with them and have some help. Yes.
May I ask a question?
Yes, yes.
So your interview was in Spanish then,
My interview was in Spanish.
to get the job?
Yes. And I'm going to go back to that. Why of having somebody in Spanish teaching or hiring in the adult education. The majority of students in the adult education in Garden City were Hispanics. They need to teach technology to those Spanish speakers. Then they need to have somebody. Well, to go back to your question, the person that gave me the interview or provide the interview to me in Spanish, he didn't know anything on technology. He knew about the customer service, personal relationship, and education, but nothing about technology. And that was I was hiring for. And that's a little bit of my history. Then one more fact here that I wanted to show it is, and this is overall Kansas. 11% spoke a language other than English at home. 66% spoke Spanish. 34% spoke some other language. 42% reported that they didn't speak English very well. And this is something that is happening or happened in Kansas. In the Southwest area, the immigration from Mexico to that area, it became when in the 1980s with the meat plants. The beef plants, there is two in Dodge City, is in the Southwest, and then Garden City, they have two. In Liberal, Kansas, they have two more. Each one of these meat plants, they kill 4,500 cows a day. 4,500 a day. Then just do the math, multiply how many there being in that area. And with that, just picture how many workforce they need to have in line to make that happen. Then the primary migration was Hispanics. Right now it's changing, and it was changing in the latest of the 1990s, 1996. There was an influence of Vietnamese, Asian people coming to the Southwest Kansas. Now it's more about Somalis, Burmese coming to the area, along with the Hispanics. Well, Garden City area, Finney County, is a 48%, 48.6% Hispanic population speaking Spanish, 48. White population is 43%. Then that town became now on the Hispanic population, a minority town. Now, I'm going to tell you another story about being Hispanic or being Latino. By the way, I'm going to ask, what will be the difference between Hispanic or Latino? Who wants to answer? what is a Latino or what is a Hispanic? Those high school students? Yeah, yeah. Different places? Like, tell me who is Latino and who is Hispanic? Central America will be Hispanic, Latino. Like what? Oh, that's okay, that's okay. Okay. Somebody else, her answer is Hispanic, it is if they're from Central America. And Latino, it is, you said? You didn't have the answer about Latino? Okay, somebody else. Yeah, right here.
Spanish speakers, Latinos, Central South America.
There you go. Hispanic is everybody that speaks Spanish, and it came Hispanic from the Spain, and then we called Spain or España. Then that was the Hispanic common heritage, and then the Latino is everybody that is from Latin America, including Mexico. Thank you. Then every time that we're called Latino, Hispanic, and my little bit story here is when I came to Garden City, I came to the grocery store, and then I saw a name tag, and the name tag says Lupe Ramos. In English, maybe it's Lupe Ramos, right? A little bit different, but I saw that Lupe Ramos in, well, my ignorance probably, my assumptions. I was in the line, and she was on a cashier, and just passing groceries and beep, 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 beep. And I never looked up, but I was talking Spanish. Hola, ¿cómo está? Muy bien, mucho gusto. ¿Cómo le ha ido el día de hoy? I was speaking Spanish, or fluent. I was happy to see or talk to somebody in Spanish. In the minute, I didn't hear that beep. She stopped. And I looked up, and she said to me, I don't speak Spanish. Oops. With that, give me two things or thoughts. Not everybody that is Hispanic or Latino will speak Spanish. And there was different reasons. And I have friends in Garden City that they being abandoned the Spanish because of schools. When they were attending schools, if they was caught speaking Spanish, they was segregated, put in the side. They were not to speak Spanish because the teachers were believed that it was talking about them. But it's with all other languages as well. Then it was kind of like the third generations living in Garden City, they probably don't have the Spanish because of those reasons. But that was just kind of like a story about we think that all Hispanic or Latino will speak Spanish, and that's not true. What is happening in the Southwest Kansas also with the Hispanic population coming to Southwest, they're contributing to a lot of cultural changes. Like in the United States, it's being celebrated the Cinco de Mayo. In Garden City, is celebrating the Cinco de Mayo, but also they adopt another celebration from Mexico that is September 16 for independence. But it is well celebrated It's not just another day, it's another celebration. But also, what I really like from Garden City, Kansas, is the diversity of just not Hispanic anymore. We have celebrations for the Vietnamese. We have celebration now. It is the city formed a multicultural council board. And the board members are from different cultures, different ethnicities. And they put together a day for celebration, each one of the diversity groups. Then one of the things that is happening with this diversity, and of course we continue to be the majority in Spanish speakers with the 48%. Then if we go back to Tyson, imagine the lines of production, and there is 1, 2, 3 Hispanics, and then a Somali or Vietnamese, and then 2, 3 another Hispanics, and then the Burmese or Somali. What is happening now is the Somalis and Burmese, they can introduce themselves in Spanish. You can walk through them and they say, "Hola, ¿cómo están?" What? Then it's interesting how the language is breaking barriers. And it is the common ground to speak Spanish because the majority speak Spanish. Then banks, the government, any organizations, they will have people speak Spanish. Now, one of the interesting parts that is happening in Garden City, also in the schools, the majority in the school system, high school students, are Hispanics. The first language, of course, it is Spanish, but they're speaking English. What happened when somebody came from Argentina, for instance, and come into the high school and don't know anything about English? Well, they have some classes for newcomers that they are specific for 2.5 months, only immerse the English to those students. Then they do a progress study with them until the end of the semester. They keep them getting more and more English. That way they can be involved with all classes. They have that with the elementary school as well. Then from first grade to 6th grade, they have a newcomer center where if they're coming from the different countries or language, then they have an introductory 1 semester or a year. It depends on how the students are progressing. There also another interesting part in the education, there is a school, it is Buffalo Jones School, where it's bilingual. It is bilingual, and it is the first year is only Spanish, and there is not only for Spanish speakers, anybody can go there. But the classes are taught in Spanish all the first year. Books in Spanish, everything is in Spanish. Second year, they introduce 1 class in bilingual. Then the third year is more bilingual and English introduction. And the 4th year for the elementary school is taught totally in English. Then those students, first the students that they didn't know any Spanish will learn Spanish, and the students that they're learning, that they're Spanish speakers will learn English at the same time. Now they have 1 generation of that school coming out, then moving to the intermediate school. Then they're on the stages of development data to see how well they'll be advancing and how will they be adapting into the other classes. then I'm anxious to see the results of that information. But that's something that is being integrated to welcome those Spanish speakers into the society. More and more Spanish speakers are going to be leading into education. The Mexican government, they have one program that is called Plaza Comunitarias. And it is implementing this program all across the United States. And what is this program intend is help the majority of migration from Mexico or in other countries are adults, and they come here to work. Well, they sometimes left Mexico or their countries without any education. And when they left their countries and come here without education, it's going to be hard for their children to have a role model and follow. They don't follow the role model. They don't have one. Then what they know is go to work, go back home. That's all they know. If they went to school, they probably not even finish high school. Then they don't know how to follow, who to follow. Then this program intention is to have the adults get their elementary school and intermediate school to be able to have their high school diploma or GED. Then with that, they can move into education or higher education. And that will be a role model for the children and could be put into education. And right now, there is different Plaza Comunitarias around the United States. In Kansas, we have two, one in Wichita, one in Garden City. We hope we can open more of those. That way we can help more adults get their education in their own language. Now, what they receive with this education is they're going to receive their certificate from Mexico, and it will be valid. And what use will have that certificate here? Probably not much. But if they decide to go back, they will have their education complete. Then that is really important. And the importance is going to be for, again, to be a model for the children to become educated. More and more, right now the adult education, and that's where I'm working and starting from technology, moving up to the direction of adult education. And more adult education is preparing the students to become part of the higher education, especially with some credentials or certificates, where they can be going to school and have or earn a certificate and go back to work. And later on, they can go back to get another certificate and then go back to work, kind of like a stackable credentials. And one example could be, we have right now one class that is for Spanish speakers, and is bilingual class for CNAs, certified nurse assistants. Then they're taking the certified nurse assistants for one semester with a help of the instructor bilingual, and they will get their certificate by December, and they will start the next certificate in January. And that will be a stackable credential, but with one credential, they can go back to work and start or keep making better money than what they're doing right now. Another important part in education is this past fall, EduCan. It is a consortium of 5 different community colleges launch a program for Spanish speakers. And it's kind of like following the same model that I was talking to you about the elementary school, but this is online. And I have the privilege to be part of that launch. I teach one class that is the orientation. EduCan, this class is going to be for Spanish speakers, but it's going to take them 2 semesters. Is going to be in Spanish classes online. The 3rd semester is going to be bilingual, and the 4th semester needs to be totally in Spanish. And also, all semesters on the associate's degree, they're going to have support of English all the way across. And right now, we're utilizing a program that is called Tell Me More, and that will be the support for Spanish and English at the same time. Then it is really interesting. The first cohort group of students on this associate's degree, it's about 9 students in this cohort group. But immediately after we start the classes, we have calls from California. We have interest from Florida, New York, and Chicago. Then it's going to be interesting to see that the Spanish speakers really want to do it. We just need to open some doors for them to do it. Well, I think I ran, though I'm still on time. Yeah. I think that's pretty much what is my presentation of the Spanish influence in the Southwest Kansas. Then I want to open this for questions. Do you have any questions? Yes.
I'm sorry, where did you say, you were talking about the plazas comunitarias? And they were in Wichita and what other?
Garden City.
And in
Garden City. Yeah. Yes.
Where are you from in Mexico?
Aguascalientes. Aguascalientes.
Is that north, south?
Aguascalientes, Mexico is on the heart of the country. It's on the north of Mexico City. It's in between Jalisco, San Luis Potosí, Zacatecas, Guanajuato.
When you were talking about EduCan, you said that there were the first 2 semesters were in Spanish.
Yeah.
The 3rd semester was bilingual, and the 4th semester was all in Spanish.
All English.
All English.
English.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the question here was about EduCan, how the semesters are divided in Spanish. The first 2 semesters are in Spanish. 3rd semester is bilingual, and the 4th, it is totally English. Yes.
Hector, can you talk a little bit about how the meat industry in Southwest Kansas seems to be the catalyst in all of this? I'm intrigued by what you're saying about the Burmese, the Somalis. That it seems like Spanish is becoming the new colloquial language in places like the Tyson plant. And it seems like these towns in Southwest Kansas are all of a sudden, in the last 30 years or so, dealing with problems that New York City hasn't figured out after 200 years. So how would you describe the changes that this has brought to Southwest Kansas with all of this immigration, particularly how that changes the language?
I believe the changes, it's the open mind of the town. Let's call it, I've been in Garden City area, but I have been in Liberal and Dodge, whereas the mid-plants where we have all this influence of different ethnicities. I believe it is, I always gonna say Garden City is a grateful place to live because the diversity and because of the acceptance of whoever came. Let's open the door. Let's make them a place to live, and they will stay. Then I think it is just the open mind from the government, from the community, and the own people that it will welcome anybody to stay in the area. Now, in a town that is 28,000 people population, and talk again about the adult education where I'm director from. It is a center that serves around 1,000 students a yearly basis. But one day, if you walk into a classroom, you're going to walk into the classroom and it is 28 different languages could be spoken in that classroom. Then the diversity and the acceptance from one another, and be sitting from this table is 8 different people. Everybody may be speaking different language. Then the acceptance between one another and be able to have a common ground that is English, but the common ground of what they're doing in an everyday basis. And I believe that is what it makes the difference. Now, in the same town of 28,000, we still have all those problems like a big city like New York, and you cannot imagine that we have 26 gang affiliations in Garden City. 26 gangs affiliations in just that little town. Well, that happened, but some of those gangs that they're being identified, probably they have like 4 or 5 different members in that, but I think we're still dealing with those. Did you have a question?
I was just curious as to what your, you mentioned working on the line in a meat plant.
Yeah.
And that Somali and Burmese and Vietnamese people would communicate, default language being Spanish. Why do you think the default language is Spanish as opposed to English?
Yeah.
I'm sure they're-
The question is why this in the meat plants, in the line of production, we have Spanish, Somalis, Burmese, and other language. Why they select the Spanish to be the common ground? Well, the majority of employees are Spanish speakers. The majority of employees, they don't speak English. Then that's one of the primary reasons. They don't really speak 100% English. Then they speak Spanish, and they use that as a common ground to speak to the others.
So really, we're talking about a little microcosm immersion experiment or immersion situation in a country that I won't say the official language is English because it's not, but it would be as if there were a bunch of Somali and Burmese and Chinese and French meat packers in Mexico, for example, and the largest group of workers were French, well then the default language would be French, right?
Yes, it is just the common ground of the majority of those students or those employees are using because that is the easy way for them to communicate. Okay, any other questions? Yes?
Yeah, have you noticed Spanish changing at all? Since you have all of these other populations that have started speaking it, Americans, Burmese, Somalians, have you noticed it evolving in any way because of these other influences that have started coming in?
The question is if I noticed some of the change of the language, of the Spanish language, changing based on the other languages. Not really, but what I noticed is, and probably you know, that English and Spanish became a new language. What is that called? Spanglish. Then I can say I'm gonna, in Spanish or Spanglish, I can say, voy a parquear mi carro. Voy a parquear la troca. Troca is a truck. Parquear is parking. Then it became together the Spanglish, and that's what is the transformation of the language with the English. In Chicago, if you have the opportunity to be in Chicago, and there is a street, the 26th Street, there is even signs that it says huachateria. What is that? That is not even English or Spanish. Huachateria is for the washer. But it is lavanderia, it is in Spanish. Washer will be in English, right? But it's not, it's not watch of, or watch. No, it is for clothing. Yeah, that's the transformation. I think it is more common than the Spanish or the other language.
I was curious about the meat packing plants, and when you were talking about that most people do speak Spanish. In what language or languages is any signage in those places?
The question is in what language the signage are in those places, and this is a question that I answered when we were eating about some. The Somali language was developed in the 1970s. Then the first thing we said, well, the meat plants and other employers asked for us to find somebody to translate their signage, to be able to know where is the restroom or exit or some of that. We asked one of the elders in Somali to translate that. And when we invite one doctor from Somali that came from Minnesota, Dr. Mohammed, he came to us and said, you need to remove those signs because they didn't say nothing. The person that developed that, he was translating that in his own belief that what it was to say, but it was not really the Somali. Well, in 1970, for elders or old Somali people, they don't even know how to write because they didn't have a writing language. Then that is another challenge that we're having, and we have translators, we have interpreters, but it is really difficult to have signs for them to follow. Sometimes, especially Somalis or Burmese, they don't have education in their own country, in their own language. Then even if we develop manuals or put big signs, they're not gonna able to read that.
Is it in Spanish and English or Spanish?
It's Spanish and English.
Okay.
Most of the signs are gonna be Spanish and English. Yeah. Yes.
Do they have a common language in Somali? Do they speak Swahili? Do they speak tribal languages? Do you have problems with people speaking different tribal languages?
I think that's the common. It is Swahili is kind of like the primary of the majority, but they're tribal, and some of them are. The Somali culture is more on the tribal, and then with the elders, they follow their elders. Then it based on what tribal you are and what is the language you're going to use. Yeah.
Yeah, I read an article several years ago about, but I don't remember if it is Dutch City or Gardens with the meat packaging plants. And it was very interesting because it talked about how the culture of sports changed in high school. And I don't know if it was in Garden City. Remember that you know, for example, here in Johnson County, in high schools, there is going to be a lot of more support for football than for soccer. And somehow, in one of these cities, everything changed. Because now the majority of people wanted to play soccer.
Yep.
And then there was some kind of resistance. I don't know if you can...
It's a liberal Kansas. Liberal Kansas is that way. the majority of people is supporting soccer, and they was I believe last year they were champions, state champions on the soccer, and they have a lot of support, and more of the support is going to the soccer instead of the football. The majority of the high schools are in the football supporting, and liberal particularly is on the soccer. It is different, but the majority of students in that play soccer. Yes? That's a good question. Ethnical foods in the high schools, did they serve those type of foods? Yes, the answer is yes. In Garden City, the menu, believe it or not, they have different types of food, including Mexican, Vietnamese, Italian, of course, and the American way. But that, yeah, it is include the Mexican and Vietnamese. Yes?
I was wondering, you say that there's a lot of community support from the city, Garden City. How about in the corporations that people work in, Tyson and the other plants? Is there much opportunity for line people to move up? And is the management mostly, Anglo? Or are there, representatives from the other, are there Latinos and Vietnamese who move up into companies?
The question is if the government is supporting or welcoming everybody, then in the mid-plans, if there is the same support and they can move up the ladder to a administration or leadership, I believe it is. There is some programs associated with Tyson and the Garden City Community College that they're called 2+1, 1+2, sorry. Then what happened with this program is they need to stay and gain some skills like on welding or maintenance, and they go to work half a day to Tyson and half a day at the school, at the Garden City Community College. And once they finish 1 year and they have their certification, then they will work for Tyson for 2 years. And they can move up the ladder on the administration if they decided to continue their education. Yes. Yes.
Since we had two references to Walmart this morning, I just wanted to throw out a third to keep the continuity. But the most multicultural experience I've had in this state was at the ethnic food section in Walmart in Garden City. Can you talk a little bit about the Mexican Mennonites that Bill referred to this morning? Because you've got this fascinating intersection there between German speakers and Spanish speakers and English.
Yeah. I have the fortune, and right now with the immigration, it's not a reform, but it is the immigration approval that the president put a little bit ago about those children that came to the United States before the age of 16. They can be or receive a work permit. We have more influence of those Mennonites coming to the adult education to get or finalize their high school diploma. Well, why they're coming to the adult education? Their education is only to the 8th grade level. They stop at 8th grade level in the Mennonite society. Then they need to complete their high school diploma. Then they're coming. And what we're being learning is a lot of what Dr. James says here is they speak Spanish, speak German, and they speak English. And I don't know if they're working in relationship with those Somalis, Burmese, then they probably pick in the fourth language. It is really interesting that I don't have many of those Mennonites coming to the center and stay longer than 2 months. They're coming, they're really sharp, they have the education, and they go for what they need, and then move on. And right now, I have the experience with 2 of the Mennonites that they're joining the program of John Deere in the Garden City Community College. They was not using big machinery in the Mennonites communities, but they're joining the John Deere program, and they're moving along. Yes.
Do you in your lifetime would like to see Mexico area in the United States just to get rid of all the borders, and Mexico at your area that you came from and all the areas become industrious? I know Ford's is down there and many others, and but to become and have the educational institutions that this country has, because I'm sure you love your country.
Mm-hmm.
And many would love to go back and for the government to clean up and have a government that would allow people to have their freedom of speech and constitution and amendments and all the freedoms that we have without socialism.
Then I'm going to try to summarize your question. The question is about can the governments will be working together to remove the borders and be more united and be able to go back and have the same freedom as the United States and be able to live like in the United States and Mexico? Is that kind of like the question?
Well, basically, but for people to clean up the crime, everyone knows it's got a bad reputation. Crime, of course, we do too in this country, more than we need. And, but it's bad, in many areas. Is there any possibility of all that being cleaned up, or is that just human nature?
I believe it is more of the media. That is, media in the latest dates is a selling point for having more viewers of the media and readers on the newspapers. I've been gone to Mexico several times, and my town looks the same as it was 12 years ago. People is walking out the streets. People are continue eating in the streets, having the children run around everywhere, what we don't have here. Then it's different. It is kind of like the same and continues to be the same, but I think it is more media that is selling what they can sell. The criminal history in Mexico and the criminal history here, what it is right now in Mexico, it happened, all those skills and all that happening, it happened here in 1 month or less in the United States versus a year in Mexico. If we compare numbers, that doesn't mean it is bad. I think it is bad because they put it out to the public, and the public get a little bit scared not going to those places. It is bad, but it is kind of like similar to what is happening with Colombia, or what happened to Colombia several years ago. It is just probably a movement or shaking to the state or to those countries that needs to happen in the natural of the moving forward to a new beginning. I don't think it's going to happen from day to night, but we hope. One more question? Any other questions? Yes.
Do you have any problems with losing their native language in Spanish, like second and third generation students going to school and hearing English, or is there just such a high population that nobody's using the Spanish?
I think I think that's my first personal fear, especially with my children. I have 4. My oldest one is in K-State. It's 19 years old. I have a daughter that is graduating and going to K-State. And I have twins, 15 years old. When we moved here, the twins were only 3 years old. And everything that they learn, they're learning in English. They speak to them in English. They speak to everybody in English. When they come home, they try to speak Spanish to us. We speak Spanish to them. But most of the time they speak in English. What we're doing a little different with them is that they need to write letters to their cousins very often in Spanish. That way they cannot forget the writing language on the Spanish. Sometimes they have the Spanglish going on. They mix the letters, and that we do that. Last time I went to Mexico, I didn't remember how to say pineapple in Spanish. I was on the street and I was asking for a pineapple, and I said, I need to hit my wife, and how do you say pineapple in Spanish? I want a piece of pineapple, and I didn't remember. But that's happening because of the language, but we need to be maintaining. Now, I'm going to encourage you, if you have a friend that speaks another language, try to encourage them to teach you some, and that way you are forcing them to keep their own language, because then you became another language, a learner, and they keep their own language. Then, yes.
Can I just ask a follow-up, Hector?
Yes.
When your twins have their own families, what do you anticipate they will speak to their children?
I would like my children to speak Spanish or teach them Spanish, just to the fact that they have another opportunity. Sometimes we think that being bilingual is gaining another opportunity. I think it's not just another opportunity. It will be a huge gain. And just to identify yourself that you can go one route or another. It just open another door for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector, very much.
Thank you.